The new pressure is creating what the pressure creates. Need, create, which is new creativity, new genius, a new language, a new civilization, a new economy, a new politics. All of this is just a training to start to kind of widen the experience, so you understand that this world needs you so bad. You want to, you made it into this room because you have a destiny to be a leader of this age. So excited for Reality Riffing to be back in action in 2019. We're coming at you with a bunch of different of my favorite Aquarian philosophers, mystics, and of course, my favoritist. I'll make all the rest of them, upset. My favoritist is right here. Don't tell anyone. Is right here with me. Much anticipated, we have to say, this episode of Reality Riffing. Remington Donovan joins me to talk about 2019, the 3-year, and some pretty deep stuff that we were just chatting about. I'm really excited, so let's roll.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we could jump into the 3-year. Three is the magic number. That's a good little device to remember. It's a very layered. It's a number of great power, but there's great hidden subtlety, and it goes really deep. There's a lot of mystical numbers around 3. So I want to start off, I'll start off with the simple energies of 3 and the things that are very easy to capture. And I want to backtrack into this 11-year that's coming to a close. And last year when we did this, we called it the year of infinite possibilities, because 11 is the container of everything. So the entire cosmos exists within this energy of the 11. It's the infinite. And the past 11 year for so many people around me, and what Guru Jagat and I have been like all year long, every time we've had a chance to talk, we keep saying, keep kind of cashing in on the 11, which was like a very easy, well, not necessarily easy, but it was an energy field where a lot could come to us. It was if you tap into the infinite and you plug in, and I described it often as very fertile ground where we could just keep planting seeds and just keep doing it, say yes, allow these opportunities to come to us. In the 3-year, though, this is the time that everything that we've been planting, it's time to grow it, or it's growing, it's time to harvest it and take it. 3 is the number of action.
And I do want to say just to that, because I know a lot of people have had a very intense year this year. We're at the very end as we record this of 2018, and there's been a lot of talk of the intensity and the amount of changes, and just the wellspring, or the kind of flood of the 11 movement of forward motion. And I do want to just say that if you are one of those people, the seeds of what you've been facing or having to step up to, even if it felt like it was overwhelming, or a lot of loss or grieving or whatever, those two are very palpable and powerful seeds. So just to mention that, because I know that this has been a big talk the past couple of weeks. I've heard.
Well, if anyone wants to go back to last year, the things that I predicted, because 11 is such a powerful flow of the infinite. It's like the Nile. The Nile in ancient Egypt would flood once a year, and it was so powerful, and the entire civilization would sustain on that flooding that made the land black, which was the original word where the idea of black magic came from, because the soil was so rich and fertile, it was black. So it wasn't about dark magic and satanic stuff.
Interesting.
But this is that force of being flooded with the infinite. And that's why I said a year ago, it's very important that everybody stays connected to the infinite and keeps up with the practice. And I predicted there'd be a lot more suicides, a lot more drugs, and a lot more false prophets. Because 11, everyone all of a sudden has this the infinity flowing through them There all sorts of stuff, and I've seen all of that happen.
Truly.
From the people with all of the downloads to the people, we've seen so many more public suicides of celebrities, like suicides and overdoses of celebrities, and if it's happening at that level, it's happening to people we don't know about. And so and one level, it's challenging because it's the reality of the infinite coming in. But the thing is now, those of you who have felt overwhelmed, 3 is a force of nature. It's a powerhouse, and it's time. I don't want to be like drastic, like sink or swim, but 3 gives us that ability to swim and to rise to the top. 3 is an energy of positive projection, and it's an energy of building. In Kabbalah, one of the significances of 3 relate to an area on the tree of life called Binah, which is ruled by the by the planet Saturn. Saturn is the planet of building. It's the taskmaster. Saturn, that part of the tree of life is where everything starts to become manifest as real. So it's an opportunity for tremendous blueprints. I keep saying this is a year, if you build it, they will come. So let's take everything and where maybe you felt overwhelmed in the year of the infinite, know that you now can access great strength, great power, and great, even just in a simple way, a very positive outlook in what you're doing. But this is going to be a year you have to stay active.
Yeah, I mean, in the Yogi Bhajan teachings, that the Trinity principles, all the Trinity principles bring us back to this kind of cutting through of deception and the sobering truth of Saturn, and the kind of tangibility of every sequence creates a consequence, and what that you got to chew on that. Like, that's part of the.
This is not the year to be fucking around.
Yeah.
Like there's a shift in consciousness that can happen so profoundly this year. There's also a shift in things that you can achieve for yourself and for those around you this year. But I like that it is sobering and real. It's just like, let's confront all of the illusions and let's just get to this sort of bare bones, nitty gritty. Let's build some stuff. Mm-hmm. So all of you out there, like things that have started to come and ideas and the 11 opening where it can, the positive side of 11 is stuff just starts flowing to you, right? I had sort of attained a lot and it was fluid, it was easy. The downside is being like lazy and then getting quote unquote sort of drowned or getting pulled into the undertow. But I want to touch on one aspect of 3 in yoga. It's called the positive mind, and the numbers 2 and 3 kind of they always work hand in hand, and I'm going to break that down kabbalistically in a moment. But 3 is positive mind, so it's the energy force. Positive mind means we're taking action, right? And in Kabbalah, 3 is in touch with this universal understanding and this divine intelligence. So it actually can be a very intuitive number when you tap into it, and it's the ability, and what I really want to encourage people to do this year is everything that they get an inspiration in their mind, start to put it into action. And so you get like a creative idea, whether it's like, I'm going to write a book, I have an idea for a business, I want to clean my house and rearrange the furniture. It doesn't always have to be at this quote unquote epic level, but if we take action on that divine inspiration this year, the universe is going to show up and start working for us. A lot of people don't understand that Saturn, the misconception and the old thinking of Saturn is that it's the planet of hardship, discipline, like hard lessons. And really what it is, when you do it right, this 3-year, when you apply a little work, that Saturn energy comes up and starts working with you.
Yeah, and also I think that the veil of Saturn and the misunderstandings of Saturn, and let's just say those who have ruled or held the power of Saturn on this planet, that's all shifting, which we're seeing very clearly.
Well, this year is going to be the year that people like us, people with the spiritual practice, can actually reprogram and reshift the consciousness of humanity, because 3 can be used for tremendous destruction.
Yeah.
Right? Saturn has been an energy field where this energy of oppression that has overseen this planet for a very long time. The 3 energy in Kabbalah is referred to as the universal memory of the subconscious. And what that holds is, on a subconscious level, it is all memories in existence of humanity since the dawn of humanity. And we have access to going into those subconscious patterns now, which now are ruled by fear, scarcity, restriction, power, imprisonment, slavery. It's time to break that. And we, people like us and people listening, we break it not just by going out in the world. It's beyond just, protesting and voting. Those are, do those things. But this is a chance to rewrite the psyche of humanity.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like such a, the kind of Akashic records are opening in some way. I don't know how to, but I mean, I don't want to be obtuse about it, but there's very much this kind of Akashic energy of the rewriting or recalibrating of some of these.
That 1 million, 3 million %.
Yeah.
That's the universal memory. So it's time to break our old patterns. So on an individual level, this is a great opportunity for us to liberate from our own sort of limited beliefs, our self-imposed restrictions. The number 3 is called devil or divine. And what is the devil? In Kabbalah, in the tarot, the devil are, generally speaking, that is our own self-imposed restrictions.
Yeah.
The word of sin is restriction. And if you always, even the devil card, which is ruled by Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, which brings us back to the 3, but this devil or divine, let's move out of that devil, which is this restrictive energy field that has oppressed us for I don't know, long time.
Yeah, I mean, way more than the age of Pisces or any of some of the things you've heard us. I mean, we're talking, if you really go back into the cosmology and the kind of Akashic history of planet Earth, and even beyond that, there's great evidence that this kind of veil of Saturn has been holding the consciousness of this planet in a certain kind of limiting belief pattern in a collective way.
Yeah, and now it's part of my mission. I feel like to teach differently about the consciousness of Saturn, and Saturn can work for us, and Saturn can make everything easy. Like even in the height of a lot of technology, we can now take Saturn and remove it from us and say, okay, get to work. And but the key thing that really is important to me is this universal memory and the subconscious, and we have access to heal some of our deepest, darkest wounds, those devilish parts of us, and that also manifests itself in where we limit ourselves, because what happens, the lessons of the devil card are, where do we demonize our own spiritual growth? Yeah. This is a dark current that even in circles that I feel like would be these quote-unquote positive, spiritually minded circles, there's always these forces of darkness that try to take people away from their own spiritual growth. And
1,000%. Let's just, can we give an exclamation point on that? I mean, that's a very important, you're not paying attention to how this planet works if you don't understand that this is a polarity planet, and if you are in any way working with the light, the dark forces are going to, in the equal and most powerful way, they're going to be there for you to in yourself work with, and I think in the Jung, like in the days of kind of the psychotherapeutic models kind of coming into collective consciousness, it was, okay, well, we work with our shadow, we deconstruct our shadow, we talk about our shadow, we get in the sandbox, but now we're in a different time where the dark forces are real, and you have to understand how it works, but we're not necessarily interested in figuring out, getting in the shadow and shadow, whatever, all this kind of shadow, because people get sucked into what they pay attention to.
That's really important. And the teachings in magic always say go to the light, and they totally scoff at those teachings that say, well, we're half dark, and always go to the light. That's our incarnational destiny, is the light. That whole myth that we have to like embrace that side of us. Like on one level, just you always stay on the positive path of light, and you add more light to everything that you're doing. Even with like Kundalini yoga, I love the teaching, like whatever somebody's doing, just add more yoga to it.
Yeah.
So take the approach, because 3 is positivity and it's also divinity, and just take the approach, just whatever your life is where you could get in a negative spiral. I'm like a failure, I'm a loser, I can't do anything, I'm weak, I'm insecure, I have suffered from all this past abuse and trauma. 3 is the number to overcome all past abuse and trauma. Okay, and on its deepest level, but do whatever you're doing, just add more beneficial stuff.
Yeah.
Whether or not somebody's listening and they're eating Pop-Tarts and Dunkin' Donuts or something, maybe just start here and there, have, a salad, like start that way. And I think that's a really important part. As opposed to just obsessing on the negative, it's doing those divine practices will switch that trajectory. But it's so easy. These dark forces prey on that. It's the quickest fix. I mean, look at advertising. Like, you can watch a deodorant commercial and they will instill so much fear, like, oh my God, I'm going to go out on a first date and I didn't put on the right deodorant. I'm going to raise my hand at something and I'm going to make a fool of myself and I'm going to be rejected for life and nobody loves me.
Yeah.
So.
You know what I would like for a deodorant commercial, which I've witnessed yesterday at the Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C., is, a beautiful African man who was obviously very, very nervous in the kind of situation we are in America right now, going through security. And he was sweating through, his armpits. And the reason being was because, he's afraid of his life in some ways. I mean, that would be a great deodorant commercial. Don't you think?
We're switching careers, and we're going to now write deodorant commercials.
Subvert political deodorant commercials. The things you really need to be thinking about.
And smell great while we're doing it. And here's another thing, too, that is really interesting about the number 3. With numerology, there's the mystical numbers. So every number has another number attached to it. And I was saying earlier, so 3 is called the positive mind, and it always works in relationship to the number 2, which is called the negative mind. And it's the negative mind is the part of us that is open and receptive and assesses a situation, and the positive mind is what takes action. Mm-hmm. That's where we take action. But the mystical number of 2 is 3. And the mystical number of 3 is 6. And these are always working. So when we add that all together, we come back to the number 11.
Interesting.
So the number 11 is still showing up this year. So the divinity part of the 3, and what I want us to access, yes, all this deep subconscious work and trauma, like this is the time. This is the time to move out of your restrictive past, period. It's just time. It's time. You decide one day, you're just, hey, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. I'm going to switch my consciousness. And it's not as hard as people make it out to be.
It's not, because what you can just get, I'm going to save everybody a lot of, shaman sessions, Reiki healings, and past life regressions right now. It is exactly whatever your patterns are, or things that you're, wish that you had or wish that were different in your adult life, are exactly the patterns that were constructed in your childhood by some reactivity or defense mechanism to whatever was going on for whatever reason. And it's the exact same pattern you're running over and over again. I mean, it doesn't matter how many years you've spent on the planet. So, it's pretty simple that way. You can just look at, I feel lonely, and then you can look at that's the pattern you've been running, and then there are ways, we have an app for there's a lot of things that you can do to change it that aren't that difficult.
People forget that it's actually easy to move into the light, because we're so used to the inertia of falling back into quote unquote the darkness. And whether that, everyone has their own way that they spiral, whether it's, depression, just laziness, et cetera, et cetera. It's unique to each individual. But now this 3 year, we still have the 11. We still, underneath all of this 3, is we still have access to the infinite. And part of what the number 3 is beyond universal memory is it's understanding, it's wisdom, and it's the creative imagination manifested.
I like that.
So this is why I keep encouraging, I really want to encourage, this is going to be an awesome year for building, and this is the year that the inspiration of what I'll call the blueprint is going to come to all of us. And again, if we take that blueprint, so, most people listening and so many of my clients, everyone has aspirations, everybody has goals. I deal with a lot of very, very ambitious people that at some level, whether or not they just want to change their career, come into an alignment with their soul, this it's a time that if we just apply ourselves, know that energy keeps the momentum going. And because there's a secret 11 hidden behind the 3, that momentum of the infinite, let's not drown. It's meant to sort of, I don't want to say coast us along, but it's going to work in our favor. There's a teaching in magic that says when you come into alignment, the truth of your will, the inertia of the universe works with you. And that's this energy. This is where we tap into Saturn that says, okay, I can build some stuff. Last year, if I didn't drown and I planted all these seeds, I was joking about growing like a bunch of loofahs, mostly because I think it's a funny word. I got to do the numerology on it at some point. But we've grown it, but now you have to take that and turn it into a tangible product and do something with it. So the reality is, I have this harvested crop. Let me take the 3 energy. 3 is a boss energy field. It's a commander-in-chief energy field. So we step into that courage, we step into that power and says, okay, I'm going to take this. I have to process them. They come and become sponges. I got to get contracts with like stores and health food stores all over the country. I need distribution. I need a marketing team. I'm going to turn this into, I'm going to work with it. This is the year of working, but not working in the idea of just, time to make the donuts day after day. Here's my usual rut and my pattern. Everybody has a chance to build their own sort of empire, meaning this sort of destiny of their soul. This is the time to take that into action, like no other number right now. So everything that's come to you in this past year, it may not have manifested itself in the tangible world, but it's floating around. It's in your aura, it's in your psyche, it's in your Akashic records. But this is the time through the subconscious that we can tweak it, we can reprogram it, we can alter it. And I finished the first draft of my book, and I did that in honor, because a lot of the inspiration was the 11 year, but the 11 year I was sort of procrastinating, lazy.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I got to write it. People have had dreams that I was signing books and have come to my workshops because they had those dreams. And I was like, I think it's another sign.
Yeah.
So I manifested an editor. A lot opened up, but I still had to show up and do the work. And I'm like, wait a minute, let me tap into the 3 early. I finally sat down and did it in not even 2 days.
Yeah.
I was like, wait.
It happens quick. Yeah.
I was like, I thought this was going to be the most daunting task of all time. But my mind, the quote unquote devil side of my mind, 3, kept telling me, this is going to be so hard and daunting. You had you grew up somewhat dyslexic. You had trouble learning and writing as a child. You felt very intimidated by school. I let those things on some level affect me. And then when I just said, like I keep saying, I made the switch. I showed up and I did the work, and I was like, this was not as hard as I thought. That is a really good example of the energy of 3. But now I have to edit it, I have to clean it up, and I got to get it on the market early in this year. So there's work to do, but it worked in my favor. So
well, I do feel like, and I talked about this in class this morning, there is something around the immediacy of answering the call of the muse, or answering the call of these kind of the creative, what did you call it? The creative
this
imagination.
is the creative imagination manifested. That's the number 3 Kabbalistically.
And I feel like there is very much, it's like, how quickly can you answer the call, the the call for the manifestation. Because I do, I don't think that was necessarily true in the 11 year, but I'm very much feeling it in this transition to the 3 year.
That's one of the best points I think we could keep with us for this entire year.
Yeah.
Because the 11, honestly, the 11 is just, let's be open to it. A lot of it will show up. It's if you get in the flow of it, it's easy. This is take action. Again, like at its simplest note, 3 is positive mind. What does positivity mean? Positive is action oriented. Negative is receptive. It's passivity, and we work in that balance. But exactly what you said, this is going to be a year of so much divine inspiration. On the Tree of Life, 3 is the idea of Saturn is where things become real. It's where we can start to manifest it. So take your ideas and follow it through. And if you follow it through because of the 11, what will happen is the destiny of your soul will start to show up, and the right things that you should be doing for your life will come into play. Yeah. So much of my work with clients is, and so much that I see is about, so many people are disappointed with their lives because they feel like they're not doing their destiny, and they tie it all into their job.
Right.
And let go of that. Let go of whatever you're doing for money. Just show up, take your divine inspiration, work with it. The trust that there's something higher, and that's the 11, will show up and start to just line it up for you. Don't outthink your way out of a very abundant life.
Which is, this is it's a huge self-sabotage mechanism, and you could even say that it's been brainwashed into the work slave society in certain ways to feed this overwhelm or this feeling like you don't know where to begin. And I do feel this, the age of technology, and Gary Vee talks about this as well, this age of technology, there has never been a more fertile time for anyone, no matter what their socioeconomics are, where they live, if they have a Wi-Fi connection, they can create something. It really is one of the most, expansive times, and that's the light side of the age of technology, or the age of Aquarius. But one thing I do want to say from my own experience, and then also just as a reminder to myself and to everyone, as it always is that the way that the Capricorn, and I talked a little bit astrologically with Kay Pacha about this, but the way that the Capricorn works, just like a boss, it's like if you have somebody on your team that will deliver, you ask them to do more. You ask them to do more. You give them more responsibility. You give them the raise. It's always the person who can handle more is going to get more. That's kind of, which is always in some ways why people don't do it, because they know that instinctively. But it's the same thing with the muse. It's the same thing with these kinds of the internal relationship with your creativity and your prosperity. When you even take one step towards manifestation, and you start to show up, and you start to show up, and you start to show up, the universe starts to show up for you, and then you get more, and then you are, and there's a trust that's part of Saturn, a self-trust and a kind of flow of trust between the muse is what I'm calling it, and I'm really taking that from Elizabeth. That's kind of Elizabeth Gilbert's work, that creativity book that she wrote that I didn't read. I just read it by osmosis. I know what it's about just by osmosis. Like I could be completely I did read a little bit of it, but the muse, basically you create a trust relationship with the muse, which is just it's the creative, the generating of the Trinity power.
Well, it's the generator. If you even look in the tarot, the 3 cards, for example, the 3 of discs, is in the deck that I use, is a little triangle with these discs and these wheels turning, and it's exactly that. It's a generator.
Interesting.
So what we have with this 3 energy field, think about that. We're walking around with little generators and engines, right? And we could just sort of plug them in to places that we want in our life. So, hey, I have this great idea. All of a sudden, I just got this flash of a business idea and how to liberate myself. That's the divine side of Saturn, is actually about liberation. Yeah. And but know that we have the secret little weapon of these little generators, these little engines that we can plug in wherever we want in our life and we have a lot of momentum to work with. But the whole muse idea, the divine inspiration, everybody's going to be having brilliant ideas. The downside is going to be, and things I want people to also look for, because it's called positive mind, part of that is too much intellectualization, too much thinking, and no action. How many people, and I'm sure at some level all of us are a little guilty of this or practice this in some way, but we just, it's the negative side is perfectionism. And perfectionism, it just, in the end of the day, gets you nowhere. Have faith in taking action and things, even when you don't have it figured all out. But the three energy will constantly think of a new, better way to do something before it takes any action, and it negative spirals into no action. I call it the paralysis of analysis, and you get frozen. So just break that rut. Just take a little leap. It's not a big deal. That's the thing, like, how perfect do things have to be? This is like another incarnation. What's the worst of it? It's like, I lost a little money, I made a little money, and you start stepping back and looking at it, and not to be totally fatalistic, but sometimes I think, would I want, like, written on my tombstone, like, here's the guy who did nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Or took no risks, or, didn't show up in a big way. Or, I mean, this is, I always think about it. It's like, what's the story I want to tell? Like, when I'm in the elder part of my, life, like, whatever, 1,000 years old. And, what's the story I want to tell everyone when I'm 1,000 years old?
And three, we can write our stories, and we can build our stories.
Yeah, and I will, coming from a quadruple Virgo who has literally had to, like, white knuckle. I mean, I have literally, in order to create anything in my life, I've had to completely deconstruct my perfectionism. I mean, really, that's been a deep personal practice. But I will say, for those of you out there who have this, it can be turned, and I want to hear what you have to say about this in the three, energy. Perfectionism can be turned into dignity and into a way of work ethic and a way of creating something with impact, doing your very best in the moment. Because I've also seen the other side of the perfectionism for me, where I can be a little, kind of casual, instead of having a little bit more of a, kind of going to the complete opposite, using the perfectionism as a work ethos, or as a, something positive.
Yeah, the negative, the other polarity of that is just overly casual.
Exactly.
And where you kind of do everything sort of half-assed.
Exactly.
So find it in the middle, and don't just, it's okay. It's okay to take a risk with a little action. You don't have to know it all, because three will get heavy. Saturn will keep restricting us. And again, know that those are little tools of the quote unquote dark side. And again, it's not this menacing thing that I'm walking around with this dark hooded demon, like getting me, like making me lazy. It's just, we all have these parts. In Kabbalah, it's the nephesh on one level, which is the animal soul, which is what we need to, like, our hearts beat. We use this energy, but when anybody on a path of discipline is always going to be confronted with resistance. And that resistance is what we're talking about here. That's that Saturn resistance, or that part of our ego, or it utilizes our ego to jump off our path of growth. That's why we demonize it. There's so many cases throughout all of history that, spiritual teachers get demonized by people because you're disrupting the consciousness. People are afraid to. Totally seriously. Like, they get their heads cut off. They get
We don't know anything about that, do we?
And that's what I'm hearing so much now, where people are so afraid of offending somebody.
Oh, it has gotten to beyond, it is the perfect time. It's just like when a stock market crash happens, it's the perfect time to invest. This is the perfect time to offend people, and I'm ready to do it in 2019. I'm going to lead the charge because everyone's so offended. I mean, it's literally, and I heard from someone recently who I respect a lot, who said that there's a lot of people not doing things because of their fear of being attacked by the kind of viruses of social media and the all of this kind of misappropriation and appropriation and the viral shaming that's happening. And it's like, fuck that. Is all I have to say.
This is the 3 energy is a confrontational energy. So,
I'm ready. I'm ready.
We're not going to go out everywhere and tell people what they should and shouldn't
No,
be
but
doing.
we're not going to not say what needs to be said. Because there is so much that needs to be said that everyone's been dancing around, including myself to some degree. I'm inviting you in. I'm inviting you in, Remington. I want to offend some people.
But key thing, everyone out there, especially in a lot of my world, I'm associating with either readers or life coaches or someone or teachers. Especially if you're a teacher, you're gonna wind up at some point offending somebody. Remember this: the people that you offend are not the people that are buying your services anyway. So who gives a fuck?
It's a Trinity principle. This is the thing you have to get. There's 33%, no matter what. There's 33.3% of the population that's not going to like you and be offended by you, no matter what you say. There's 33.3% that's going to like you no matter what you say, and then there's 33.3% that are neutral about you. And so just to encourage everyone, if you're not doing something or you feel scared about putting your voice out in this, the atmosphere is very, very bloody right now. I mean, people are attacking each other. It's gotten a little better towards the end of this year, but it's been rough in feminism, in wellness, in spirituality. In
cultural misappropriation and spiritual practice is something I've slowly started to address.
Yeah.
And I also very much can, because I'm seeing people, and I'm seeing it through social media, not people that I'm close to, but I'm seeing a movement of consciousness which is profoundly dark, that is trying to lure people off of their spiritual path and their spiritual growth. And when I start saying things like, oh, you have to be to practice yoga, for example, that you have to be of a certain nationality and a race, is fucking insane. I grew up on an ashram where a very high teacher from India, Swami Satchidananda,
on purpose came to the West.
Not only on purpose, under the guidance of his teacher, Swami Shivananda, said, no, you have to go to the West, which is predominantly white, but it's nothing about race and it's nothing about culture. These are spiritual teachings that have existed forever, that are in our collective consciousness, and it takes some of these teachers to bring it out. But it was Swami Satchidananda's mission from his teacher and his incarnational destiny to come to the West and teach Westerners yoga and spirituality. And he was a religious studies scholar, so he was very versed in Christianity.
Yeah,
but
totally.
He showed the lens that these teachings of Christ were the same Christ as a yogi or as a magician. And so I was born into this. So when I hear people saying that, I'm like, wait a minute. I was actually part of it from the get-go.
Well,
Yogananda, Yogi Bhajan, and so many more came here. And yoga and these teachings transcend culture, period.
This is the thing. They don't understand the relationship between a teacher and a student if they're saying that. Because a true teacher and a true initiate or student or whatever you want to call them, that relationship goes beyond time and space. It goes beyond everything. It has nothing to do with, and so when
it goes beyond the color of my skin and my incarnational choice.
It goes beyond your gender. It goes beyond and your gender. It goes beyond all of that, because that is in our scene, that's really the primordial relationship, the relationship between teacher and student. And so, I've had some people comment on social media, not that badly, but definitely some, about, whatever the cultural misappropriation is. It's just a complete misunderstanding of what the true spiritual path is about.
Yeah, and if you actually, like Yogi Bhajan made very specific teachings that you follow the legacy and not the lineage. And if you go after lineage, you're going to go mad. And the teachings are handed down through legacy. In the magical tradition, which has been a significant part of my life and my path by choice as a very young adult, as a teenager, even though I was born with these yogic teachings with Swami Satchidananda, the teachings in magic actually go way stricter, and that you are supposed to transcend any idea and concept about race, because, or not just race, but cultural identity. It's not the race thing is not
all personal history, basically. I mean,
you transcend the limitations of your upbringing, your cultural heritage, that we embrace all these cultural heritages, and that there's a seed of truth in every spiritual tradition. But from the point of view of a true magician that recognizes the true seed of the spiritual magic of all traditions, all religions have actually misappropriated those seeds, the real mystical teachings, and have turned it into a religion which is influenced by the voice of a culture. And to really practice magic, you have to transcend those limitations. And whatever you're born into, people have to remember, you choose your incarnation through those lessons that you're supposed to learn and overcome. And other people have stronger struggles than other people, and everybody has their incarnational shit to work out. But do not let some force of thinking that you're going to offend somebody because of your practice, or to teach somebody because you've been taught through the appropriate channels. Do not let that take you down. And I see it as to the perspective of a magician, it's a satanic movement, because that is keeping people off their paths. And at the end of the day, who cares if somebody's going to, like, so much yoga to me is totally ridiculous and cheesy. But you know what? Like, I'd rather see people doing some lighthearted breath works in their office. Like, I love going deeper, and this is the thing that's my thing. But you know what? Don't try to take people off some growth and self-improvement, whatever it is.
I'm telling you, I went to the gym in my mom's small town in Virginia yesterday, and I went to her yoga class, which I was totally irritated about.
And I know Virginia well.
Yeah. It's a small town in Virginia. It's like this strip mall, fitness club. And I went to the yoga class, and I was totally irritated about it just because of my spiritual materialism, and I have things to do and all this stuff. And it was one of the most beautiful yoga classes I've ever been to. It was packed full of people who are, in a lot of ways physically not the classic yogi, and definitely have not been exposed in certain ways. And it was just so beautiful and sweet. And so I just feel like part of my huge message this year, in this 3-year, is about unity. It's like everybody can continue to fight and make each other wrong, but we need unification on this planet. And if you don't understand the agendas of the higher elite and the alien agendas, then you're not paying attention, and you're not understanding that the divisiveness is a part of the power play and the negative side of Saturn, and we have to come together now.
We have to come together this year like we never have, because also of this energy of 3 that will try to get people to spiral out. And I predict, like, on another level, the rest of the unconscious world may be more conflictual, and we have to be there. So that's, again, where we started with shifting and altering the subconscious patterning. But because it's the universal memory, what is universal? It's united. That's the mystic. The definition and magic of a mystic is someone who unites. And it's time for us to tap into that mysticism. We are mystics. We're here to unite. And that's what all these teachers, Guru Nanak traveled all over his territory. And if he could have gotten around, he would have been teaching on every single continent these same teachings. Christ, wasn't like, these people were murdered by the state. So you may offend somebody, but chances are it's not going to get that extreme. living in the cultures that a lot of us live in. But
We
have to change it, and we can't keep separating ourselves when we could easily be getting along.
And also, I think that it's important in the true sobering of the 3 year, and also the possibility for the kind of amplification of unity in this year. I think just to say that all the conversations of needing to unpack some of this stuff and have real conversations about it, I think this is important. It's just as important as, being real about a lot of things that people may have not thought of or have not understood. Or, it's not that the conversation itself is wrong, because I think the conversations around some of these things that, have been kind of, intensely viral around the wellness and feminism and all this kind of thing. I think it's been a very, very important conversations. But at the end of the day, somebody has to step in and say, because we need true leadership, which is a 3 situation. We need leadership. I mean, look at what's happening. We need leaders who are stepping in and saying, all right. This is all true. We can continue to talk about it, but we are of one. This is one love. This is the true moment of how, as a species, as an earth, whatever species are on this earth, we have to come together. And it's more important now than it ever has been, and it ever will be, in my opinion.
And the other side of 3, we've emphasized some of the dark things to be mindful for. It's divinity.
Yeah.
And even in so many traditions, 3 shows up. The Holy Trinity, divinity.
Yes.
Even Pythagoras said, if you have a problem, make a triangle out of it, and there's your solution. So this is the year that we get to solve all our problems.
Yeah.
And there's a unifying energy. And on a real easy note, positive mind is, why don't we have an optimistic outlook about our lives, and let's come together and share. Like, it's mind baffling to me that we don't have a world that is so prosperous for everybody. Like, all the resources are here, and if we just are here helping each other, but on a psychic level, let's shift the consciousness. It's like, what was I saying earlier? It's like it's an energy of mind control to get people to think for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Yogi Bhajani says all meditation is self-hypnosis. And if you're experiencing, this is very negative mind, positive mind. If you're experiencing something in your life that is of a hellish experience or of a negative experience or some sort of, what they call in Buddhism, a bardo, you're in this kind of negative spin, you have hypnotized yourself to believe that that's what is the reality. And all you need are the tools to hypnotize yourself to another reality. And that's the self-hypnosis and the positive side of kind of hypnotizing the vision or the subconscious of the collective consciousness that, things can get better and we can solve these problems and the future is bright. I mean, it is a huge agenda for us to feel the fear-mongering and the all of the kind of negativity that you have on the corporate news.
Yeah, remember this, 3 is the problem solver.
Yeah.
That is just, let's get to the truth, let's get to the essences, whatever conversations you need to have, but we're on this planet together. Yeah. And we can build something so beautiful. And it's shifting.
Yeah.
It's just, so a lot of people, and I think most of the people listening, it gets really frustrating because the rest of the world isn't caught up, but we're shifting it. And
the rest of the world doesn't have to catch up. That's one thing I want to say just in this vibrational reality. It only takes the true kind of powering up of the let's call it 20% of the planet, of the light workers or whatever you want to call it, those who have incarnated to do this work on the planet. It only takes all of us who know that is us to do the true work to make a huge, huge shift.
And just on that note, this secret sort of hidden energy of 11, frequency of 3 is saying too that what we're projecting and giving out and building, that 11 energy takes it and builds it to the infinite. So everything we can go really big this year. and it's going to work in our favor. So that's why it's really important to stay on the sort of positive side, because everything that you're doing is going to get amplified to a level more so than it was last year, because the 11 energy on it itself is a little less empowering. It's just very receptive and it's opening, but we now have the keys to the car, to the castle, and we're the ones driving, and each individual now says, okay, we're all in the driver's seat now with this resonant energy of amplification of everything that we do. And when we do it for good, like this, like things can change so profoundly and dramatically.
Yeah, and in a very real way, and very
real,
very one little step at a time. It doesn't these can be just small constructive steps towards the bigger. And we talk about this a lot. Everything I've ever created, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had no idea how I was going to do it. And then when I knew how I was going to do it, I didn't have the resources, or I didn't know I felt like it couldn't be perfect, or I couldn't be, and yet you just still do it. And that's so, and I have major 3s in my chart. So you just still do it.
And that's, just do it, you'll figure it out. In magic, 3 is also referred to as the 3-headed hound of reason. And that's the parts of us that keep telling, it's all our doubts, right? It's every part of us that says we can't grow, we can't succeed, we can't open up, whether it's like my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my wife, my husband, my boss won't let me do it, my parents will think I'm crazy, the townsfolk will think I'm a lunatic, or they'll think I'm a loser, or I might offend somebody, this and that part of our thinking, that's the 3-headed hound of reason. We will always come up with some rational, intellectual reason why we can't advance. And just, this is the frequency to just dispel that. Because in the magical teaching, that 3-headed hound of reason, that dog is actually God, God showing up to sort of test us and test our resolve and to test our growth. So we can, don't give in to that thinking this year. It's done. It's an illusion of your mind. And on one level, it's a test for tremendous growth, and it's not that hard to not give into it.
In the words of Yogi Bhajan, you are not dogs, you are gods.
He taps into everything.
He really does.
I love that.
Well, we're gonna have part 2, I hope, on New Year's Day.
Yeah,
if we
Monday,
can have another.
and then
So
we're
if we think of some things, we'll rock on a little part 2.
Oh, there's so much more. We just scratched the surface.
I know.
3.
So let's stand by and let's bring some of the other things that we didn't talk about in part 1, and we'll continue to wrap.
I want to get into the real boss energy, and it's gonna be a great year. Like I'm more excited about this than the 11 year.
I'm so excited. I really feel inspired. So thank you so much, Remington. Thank you for being here, Satnam. And
always so grateful.
Part 2. We'll continue to chat.
Day.
New Year's
All right.
Day. Satnam.